Aloha. Welcome to Healthcare in Hawaii. I'm Josh Green, your host, Senator from the Big Island ER physician. Today I'm hosting a show on the Hawaii State Hospital, which is our institution that takes care of those with some of the most severe illness in our state. I have two experts with me today. I'm very excited about this. First, to my left, my immediate left, Mr. Bill May, who's our Hawaii State Hospital administrator now for about a year. Bill was past superintendent at the Colorado Mental Health Institute, CEO at Trenton Psychiatric Hospital in New Jersey. He's had a career in mental health administration for over 30 years. He's a terrific guy, and he joined us here in Hawaii at a time of great need. So I wanted to say thank you for coming aboard today.
Thank you, Senator. Pleasure to be here.
It's great. And then Dr. Bill Sheehan, who I've had a longer relationship with, who I'm very fond of. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to see you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Bill is the Adult Mental Health Division, was the Adult Mental Health Division Medical Director from 2005 to 2010, then the AMHD Chief from 2010 to 13, Hawaii State Hospital Medical Director from 2013 to present, board certified in psychiatry, one of our experts in mental health. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So if I refer to you both as Bill at any point, jump in. Look, I really appreciate you coming here today on short notice. In the last, I guess, year and a half, we spent a little more time together than maybe in other periods. We had some challenges at the Hawaii State Hospital. But you guys are the right people to step up, so I'm really encouraged to have you both professionally on board. Why don't we start, if we can, Bill, give us a little bit of an overview of what the Hawaii State Hospital is.
Yes, Senator, I'd be glad to. And again, thank you for the opportunity to come on your show. It's very exciting, and it's great to see you again.
You bet.
The Hawaii State Hospital is the only public psychiatric hospital in the state of Hawaii. It was built for 168 people. We currently have just around 200 people as we sit here today. We've been as high as 215 since I've been here. And we also rent 42 beds at a facility on the other side of Oahu.
Okay.
So currently our system is serving inpatient 242 approximately patients. Most of our patients, about 98% currently, are what we would call forensic patients. That is, they're court ordered. They come to the Hawaii State Hospital for either evaluations for competency. They committed some type of crime. They've been charged with a crime. A judge wants to see if they're competent to stand trial. So these evals can either be done in the jails, in the community, or at the Hawaii State Hospital. If a patient is deemed not to be competent to proceed to trial, then they will come to the hospital in what's called to be restored to competency. And right now we have approximately 90 of our 200 patients are there to be restored for competency. We also have several patients, about 30, 35 that are there, and they were found not guilty by reason of insanity. So they're there, and we will provide services for them. Let me go back to the restoration patients for a moment. Once we get them to be restored, we will give them, they have to be aware of the charges against them and be able to help in their defense. So we have to get them to that point. So they have to have knowledge of the court system, knowledge of why they're there, their different options, and then in a mental state enough to help in their defense. Once that occurs, most will go back to jail to stand trial, to go through the legal system. Some will be discharged with a discharge plan that has to be approved by the court. The NGRIs, not guilty by reason of insanity, same thing. They will come to us. We will provide them a multitude of services, get them to a point where it's safe for them to be discharged to the community. Again, a judge will have to approve it. Outside evaluators come in, and it could be one evaluation or three. Usually they all have to agree it's okay to go, they're safe enough to go, or in the case of the restoration patients, that they're at the point of that they're competent to stand trial. And then on the opinions of the evaluators, the judge will then make a determination. So they are pretty much the major categories of patients that we deal with at the Hawaii State Hospital. Again, we are pretty much an exclusively forensic hospital now, as opposed to a civil hospital. And in a nutshell, in a real small nutshell.
Well, it's so fascinating to me. So so people really get it. One hospital,
Yes.
You also have some beds contracted with another facility, but basically, you're always at capacity. It's as many as 200 patients. Dr. Sheehan, tell us a little bit about what the patients look like. What kind of patients do you see? What are some of the challenges that they face? What are the illnesses that they are dealing with?
The kind of patients who come to the Hawaii State Hospital actually are an incredibly wide spectrum, all the way from, and they're a wide spectrum both with their mental illness that they have as well as the legal charges that they face. And we've seen everything from people with what we call no diagnosis, or like a little adjustment disorder, which is a small psychiatric diagnosis, all the way to paranoid schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, which is a form of maybe a combination of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, where people have a thought disorder and bad mood swings and everything in between. We all, probably 3 out of 4, or maybe now 4 out of 5, also have a co-occurring diagnosis of crystal methamphetamine dependence, which just complicates everything. And it's hard to get a good handle on it, but many people there have medical or neurological or head injuries as well. So we have a spectrum from very serious, severe and persistent mental illness to very mild mental illness. But then co-occurring with that, and what brings them into the hospital, as Bill said, was the legal charge. So we have, once again, the same spectrum, all the way from multiple murders, serious murders, and sex assaults and Class A felonies, all the way to park rule violations and driving without a license and those kind of things. And there's no correlation between the diagnosis and the illness. So some people with really serious diagnoses have really mild law violations or charges. Other people with really mild or relatively mild mental illness have really serious charges, and everything in between. So it's an incredible spectrum of people who we see at the hospital. There's the challenge. The hospital was built at a time, maybe like many state hospitals, where most people were civil commits, mostly people who you were used to thinking of in psychiatric hospitals. Matter of fact, I pulled 50 charts from 1970 just out of our old medical records.
That's the year I was born.
Yes.
Yes.
Sort of an archaeological expedition.
Not us. But
Yeah, I know. You notice I didn't say anything when you said that. I think I was in high school actually in 1970, but see, that's
Our producers weren't even born yet,
that's
so you
another
guys are
story.
okay.
So, and the diagnoses were alcohol dependence, cannabis abuse, schizophrenia. You didn't see stimulants. You didn't see amphetamines. It wasn't even around like we know it today back then.
Yes.
And all the way till now. And so the hospital was historically built for a traditional mentally ill population. What it has become, like many other states, is a forensic facility. That over time, as the population has increased in the state of Hawaii, as the capacity in the community has stayed the same or decreased, and as crystal methamphetamine has become more and more prominent, and the legal system has been filled with people who are in trouble with the law for one reason or another, who have mental illness.
Yes.
And by the way, the jail is also having a parallel issue with this, with many people being incarcerated who have mental illness. A place that was built in a traditional psychiatric way has been, through evolution and pressure, forced into being a forensic facility. It's like a bus on bicycle tires, though. There's no infrastructure to support the kind of people who we're getting nowadays. It just wasn't built for that. It wasn't designed, it wasn't staffed for that. And so it creates all sorts of challenges, including the kind of things you've been talking about recently.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get into that in our second part of our segment, the challenges that your team faces, which is just rigorous safety concerns that you have to take up. But I just wanted to still stick with some of these basic points. So it seems like since its inception, the hospital has been forced to try to keep up with the times. And the times seem to be serious changes in the profile of drug use. Methamphetamine, which as an ER doc, I see every weekend, and I see sometimes people with acute psychosis, which on occasion do end up in your good care. But more often than not, we try to clear them, and they're in society. They haven't committed a crime in my setting. They're just in the ER usually. And but they have needs. And these needs this is a whole new discipline almost. Is that fair to say? That the discipline of psychiatric care with methamphetamine and violence. We didn't have that, or not very much of it, back in the 70s and early 80s.
Maybe alcohol, maybe LSD, maybe other kind of things, but not like this.
Wow.
Yeah,
I do agree. In my experience, we would deal with other drugs, not the crystal meth that I see here.
Yeah.
It's a major issue, like Dr. Sheehan said, 80% is probably a low projection on the number of patients who come through our doors that have some type of illicit drug use, usually the crystal meth, and it just leads to psychosis, and it's very difficult to deal with. It's a long process.
Let me ask you a question. So I have treated, drug-induced psychosis in the acute setting. What's it like when you're taking care of an individual that has longstanding psychosis and now has to receive care and, be secured at the psychiatric hospital? Do you also do drug treatment? Are you essentially now a mental health facility and a drug treatment facility because of this mix? How does that work?
Well, if I may,
Yes,
Bill, as our administrator, is over the whole hospital. In my role as medical director, my other title is Associate Administrator of Clinical Services, which includes psychiatry and psychology and social work, substance abuse services. We have a staff of mental health substance abuse coordinators. They're all certified substance abuse counselors, and they work with our patients directly. So yes, we provide programming and education for substance abuse, occupational therapy, recreational therapy. We have the vast array of all clinical services, and they do a good job of it. It's just that, let's say there are 8 or 9 of them, and there are 150 or 60 people who have that illness. If we can move them along from that, what they call the pre-contemplative stage, where they're not even thinking about treatment,
Yes.
to leaving, at least being willing to acknowledge there might be a problem and willing to consider treatment, we then do have places to refer them for those who are willing to do it, right?
Yes, we do. And discharging the patients is a challenge in itself. And now if you throw this complicating factor onto a patient's background, finding a place willing to take somebody who may have a relatively serious charge, but he's okay to leave now. But now he has the drug abuse thing also.
Right.
Finding a place like that. And we've been relatively successul recently, more recently than
We've had
before.
some new resources
Yes.
added to our, so we should talk about the
Yes.
Adult Mental Health Division. So we are sort of the one hospital for the Adult Mental Health Division, but as you know, and maybe people don't know, there's a whole lot of services available on the front door prior to people even getting sent to us, and at the back door to pick people up after they leave the hospital. Now, we always hear, and it never seems like there's enough. It's sort of like 10 pounds of rice in a 5-pound bag.
Yes.
But there are services all the way from the crisis line that helps pick people up at the beginning, to case management, crisis services, crisis shelter that is on every island except maybe Kauai.
Yes.
And then on the backside, there's housing, there's residential treatment, including these contracts with substance abuse facilities that we didn't used to have, Sand Island and Hinamauka, that we have additional capacity.
Right, and I've been on, I've kind of been on these issues with a lot of people that are very dear to us that we work with day in, day out. And one was the Director of Human Services. And when Rachel Wong came on the show, she spoke of, and she was very new to her new role as Human Services Director, she spoke of hoping for a spectrum, to expand the spectrum of support, because she knew that there would be professionals. She's not a physician, she's was working with the Hospital Association, but she was very familiar with our hospital needs and challenges, and shortage of beds and shortage of providers for not just mental illness, but drug treatment and so on. But she looked at the problem kind of with not only fresh eyes, but also, I think, the right approach, which is she knows, like you just described, we're going to have a rainbow of different options, because one person's serious hospitalization today at Hawaii State Hospital 2 or 3 years from now might be support services, drug counseling, and maybe homelessness.
I think that's been a big change in the last couple of years too, the CCS. So Department of Human Services has the Community Care Services system that I think is almost like a parallel system to the Adult Mental Health Division. The eligibility is very similar, the services available are very similar. Our system might focus more on the people in the legal encumbrances, the forensic encumbrances, but the services available, and we see them go to both sides, AMHD and the private vendors.
It's really fascinating to hear that, and I don't know how the general public looks at the system that we have today. I think that probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, right before we get to our first break, I think people read about things in the newspaper when they are often at their worst, and they don't realize that hard work goes on every day, and you guys are doing yeoman's work to keep many of those headlines from occurring. You're certainly doing everything possible to take care of the sickest people in our state.
Senator, for every unfortunate thing that happens at that hospital, there's 10,000 wonderful things. I shake my head. This morning we had a conference call, and we were almost giddy we're looking at the list of patients who are just beyond where anyone thought they would be. And it's like, yeah, you know what? There's some really, really good stuff being done here, and there truly is. There truly is.
It's nice to hear that. So why don't we go into our first break? People do get better, and I think that's going to be one of our take-home messages today. This is Josh Green. I'm your host for Healthcare in Hawaii, Senator from Big Island and ER Doc. I'm joined today by two Bills, Dr. Bill Sheehan and Bill May, leadership at the Hawaii State Hospital.
Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Miley Scarpino, and I'm the host of the Empower Hour. If you're interested in health, nutrition, fitness, here on the island of Oahu, want to learn more about places to train at or different trainers available, then watch my show on Fridays at 3. We have a great time, and I hope that you'll come join us. Much aloha. Now go get swole.
Aloha, how you doing? I'm Gordo the Tech Czar here on ThinkTech Hawaii, where we co-host Hibachi Talk, where we talk about technology and bring in all kinds of cool guests. Also, my co-host with me today is
Andrew the security guy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching ThinkTech Hawaii, and thanks for watching Hibachi Talk. We also have Angus.
And you there, lad. It's Angus. I bring in all kinds of wee things. Oh, look, you can see my lips moving.
Aloha, welcome back to Healthcare in Hawaii. I'm your host, Josh Green, Senator from Kailua Kona and Kau, work in the ER on the Big Island as well. Today, we're having a focused program on the Hawaii State Hospital, which is our psychiatric hospital for our state. In our first segment, it was explained that we have approximately 168 beds available, though they're often full well beyond capacity. They've had 202 patients recently in the hospital. They take care of a lot of our sickest people. Our physician on the panel today, Dr. Bill Sheehan, who's the medical director, explained that the scope of the problems that people face is really quite profound. 80%, or as much as 80% of the individuals that are treated at Hawaii State Hospital have drug addiction that is of the most challenging flavor, and that's crystal methamphetamine. That complicates the underlying mental illness that also exists, which varies from very benign mental illness like a personality disorder, all the way up to schizophrenia. So these are some of the most challenging patients to take care of who have some of the greatest needs. And then Mr. May also explained that they have been sent to us 98% of the time by the courts. They've committed a crime, and in some cases it's a very scary crime. Some of the worst crimes that have been committed in Hawaii, including murders, have resulted in those patients being evaluated at Hawaii State Hospital. So these are two of our champions that work in the system that do a great deal of good for our society and also deal with a lot of the challenges. Gentlemen, in the last year, we've had discussions because there are challenges. It's an older hospital like you described. It was built for more kind of bread and butter psychiatric needs going way back. And now, in the modern age, people have really huge challenges. We saw some injuries, for instance, that came up right before actually you came aboard, Bill. And I know you kind of walked into a hornet's nest. We were all looking at the hospital saying, how can we make sure we have the services and the skill set to do everything that's necessary? And here we were. A couple people had been hurt. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And what are the ongoing challenges at the state hospital as you see them?
The challenges, Senator, are really, in my experience, there's 4 major challenges if you're running a psychiatric hospital. And we spoke about this when I first got here just over a year ago. Staffing, census, safety, and physical plan. And then each one of those has several sub-challenges, if you will. To me, my number one job, bar none, is the safety of the patients and the safety of the staff. The patients deserve to be treated in a safe environment, and the staff deserve to work in a safe environment. You do not go to work with the expectation that you're going to get hurt. It's not part of the deal. It's not part of the contract. And we strive to provide that safety. Now, in any healthcare organization, and I'm sure you can attest to this working in an ER,
Yes.
there's a element of risk for violence. Psych hospitals, there's an elevated risk. In public psych hospitals, there's an elevated, even more, the risk for violence. And we get that. And
Is this a national reality, Bill?
Actually, it is. It's a statistic which is published by I can get back to you, but we used it in a conversation that we had with another state agency a couple of months ago. And I believe it's 9 times higher in a public psychiatric setting than in, say, an ER or something like that.
That's the risk of an injury occurring or someone making an attack on an individual.
Exactly. So, you know, we get that, and it's the environment in which we work, and then we do enhancements and training and establish protocols to minimize that risk. Now, I need to say that last Wednesday, we had an incident where a staff member was assaulted by a patient and did receive injuries. Okay, it's very traumatic for the rest of us, especially for her and her family, of course. But, you know, she's part of our family at the hospital, and nobody wants that to happen. And we're dealing and we're supporting, and we've had counselors come in, and we're trying to do the right thing for the rest, you know, the rest of the staff and us. But it is a fact of life at a place like this. But, and I'm almost uncomfortable making my next statement, given what my staff are dealing with now in the aftermath of this assault. She was the first employee this calendar year to lose 1 day of work based on an assault that happened in this calendar year. We're 7 months into the year. That's a really, really good track record for this year for the staff. But again, we did just have something happen last week, and we wish a very quick recovery, and we're dealing as hard as we can with the aftermath of that.
I think Dr. Sheehan, he was chomping at the bit to comment.
No, I was just going to say that while we're on our way down, we're not satisfied.
Yeah.
No matter how good stats are,
Right.
we're not satisfied with that.
One assault is one assault too many.
Right.
One injury is one injury too many.
Yep.
Well, I
Yep.
get what you're saying, because I have had that happen in my own ER where, you know, every once in a while someone, and I will tell you this, in my 15 years in the ER here in the state of Hawaii, every time we've had an assault, it also did happen with a patient who had methamphetamine addiction, which is, you know, I think something that we might expect. And I'm assuming that is a challenge at your hospital
Well, I can
as well.
talk, if I may, and I echo what Bill said too about the safety at our hospital. I think the vast majority of every day, and certainly the way we start every day, is this conversation with our leadership team or his leadership team. We're all there about safety in the hospital, what happened in the previous 24, if it's a weekend, the weekend, and I think we do that on a pretty regular basis, making that a high priority. And I just got to acknowledge that, and I appreciate that we've done that with your support too. Everybody's been helpful. The division's been helpful. The department's been helpful. The director, everybody's been supportive. On the clinical side, these kind of folks are really hard to treat. We sort of say sometimes you can't make this up. Like all the things the textbook tell you about how to treat people kind of go out the window because nobody is just a pure, if you will. Rarely do we see just a pure single diagnosis, nice response to treatment. We get it once in a while, and we're very excited when that happens. But almost everybody's got these co-occurring problems, like with these biological problems, these psychological problems, and these social problems thrown into this big mixture, and it makes the person's life a wreck, and they're in trouble with the law on top of it, and their behavior is really problematic, and the traditional and the ways that we help them and offer them help meet with limited success. And I think what we see is partially treated. So we're constantly struggling and striving to find creative ways to treat them, new programs, new medication combinations, and anything we can think of, we've done. I mean, you've been pretty out of the box, being willing to try some different stuff. So
Let me have you flash back. So a couple of years ago, maybe when we started having a more kind of robust dialogue about safety, we had a cluster of people come forward, and they'd had some episodes that a few people had been hurt pretty seriously, a couple people had concussions. There was a worry. You guys did step up to the plate, and I can't thank you enough for coming diligently to all those discussions and taking to heart what issues we could possibly tease out in a larger discussion. What was that about? Was that just an accumulation over the years of some injuries? Have we been able to move the needle? Are things safer now? Or is it easier for you to understand what you need to do at the state hospital to make sure the workers are safe? I'm so pleased to hear that we've only had one serious injury that resulted in a loss of work in the year, but are we still having a lot of smaller episodes?
Yeah, last year, 2014, was the lowest year in 7 years as far as staff injuries and staff assaults.
The lowest number?
The lowest, every category.
Okay.
Lowest, what we would call a serious assault would be one requiring outside medical attention. There were 7, and that was the lowest. the total number of assaults, and we define assault very broadly, even an attempted assault,
Yes.
we call assault.
Yes.
That was the lowest. I think there was 114 last year. Again, the lowest in 7 years. People who lost work, that was the lowest in 7 years. This year is on track to be right about at that same level.
What do you attribute this to, this success that the number of assaults or serious assaults have been dropping? Have you changed policies? Have protocols changed? Have you had a different kind of training program for the new workers?
The training that we have it's a multiple time each year that each employee needs to go through. It's a hands-on training, which is fine. That's how you handle a situation where you're physically in contact with a patient.
Yes.
Or deflecting a punch or that type of thing. It's almost identical to, it's the industry accepted standard of training for that.
Mm-hmm.
We're very excited about something that we developed in Colorado when I was there. It was the eye care program there. But we're calling it the MUA program here, which means moving on in Hawaii.
Yes.
And it's a proactive communication where we ask each patient once, twice, 3 times a shift, depending on the patient, are you okay? Josh, are you okay? Mom called last night. How'd that go? Hey, you and Bill had an issue the other, is that okay? And we found it to be dramatically successful in Colorado in the reduction of the use of seclusion and restraint, assaults and injuries. That's simple. A patient talking about something at the beginning is where you can deal with it very easily, is so much better than waiting until 2 days later and it's boiling and then it explodes. And that's when someone gets hurt.
Yes.
So we're having, the staff have been trained, and it's been a planful rollout, but this Friday, the 31st, we're having our big kickoff, the big AMUA kickoff. We have T-shirts. The Hawaiian canoe is we had the patients pick the symbol for it.
Yes.
And being that it's moving on, it's the canoe that I forget the name of.
Hokulea?
Hokulea is the symbol.
Uh-huh.
And it's great, and we're very, very excited about this. Some of the units have been piloting it, and I was on the unit Saturday talking to some of the staff, and they're just showing me how it's working already. And we're I'm very excited. And I don't want to guarantee, but I'm very confident that we're going to be successful with this.
Clinically, this sounds like one program that's meant to bring down the heat at the hospital because you're dealing with such a really combustible group of individuals. What other kind of programs do you offer that help to deal with some of the violent tendencies that are in the patient's lives?
I thought, while you were talking, I was thinking back I've been with the division the whole time during from after I was here during the Department of Justice through the 2009 economic downturn. And you were around, and there was that time period when the budget cuts were really difficult under previous administrations. Programs, positions, there was a reduction in force. 2009, 2010 was a bottoming. And at some point, during the Abercrombie administration and continuing into the Ige administration, a bottom got put in the system, I think. And programs started to get rebuilt or revitalized or redeveloped. And it's included our system too. So there are forensic programs in the community, jail diversion. They're working really hard to hire a good forensic chief and work on the courts and corrections section of things. They're paying attention to that. And then the back door I've talked about, but in the hospital, I think that we have taken, I think we've taken the feedback we've gotten from the community, some of it wasn't that easy to hear seriously, and used it as a quality improvement opportunity to make people, programs, and systems better. So in terms of examples, I mean, I think the IMUA program that's coming is a really good one, but the people who have been there, I mean, we try really hard to do good assessments. We try really hard, our psychiatrists try really hard to do good pharmacology. They do really well taking the court's requests seriously and responding to them. So our psychiatrists who are not trained as forensic psychiatrists sort of been pressed into learning on the job to be forensic psychiatrists. And they do a good job writing letters, testifying in court in ways that we really probably weren't trained for in a formal way. Many things, yes.
Let me ask you a little bit about that, just for our viewers who might not be too familiar, and myself included, about the overall staff at Hawaii State Hospital. We understand now that you have 200 plus patients that you take care of. Let me ask you rapid fire questions. How many psychiatrists in
14.
general? 14.
Not including him.
Not including Bill.
One
So
medical director, one chief of psychiatry, and 13 staff psychiatrists.
how many psychologists do you have?
12.
another 12 psychologists. So there's now 25 psych professionals on the team. And then you
I
have
may be 1 or 2 off on that, but in the ballpark.
in the ballpark. Yeah, I just want so people
Yeah,
can
I
understand.
know.
And then there
Social
are
workers.
social workers. How
Same
many?
thing, 14, a little bit more on social workers.
And then you have psych
9
techs, another
substance
Yes.
abuse coordinators.
Several hundred psych techs, nurses, obviously.
tons of nurses.
Tons of, yeah, and actually the staffing level is good. When I
Mm-hmm.
first got here, we had approximately 50 direct care vacancies, and actually I testified to that in front of you.
Yes.
We were down to less than 25 now, 3 of which are RNs. So
Really?
we're making great progress there.
Can't tell you how much I appreciate that because as we head into our second and last break, that was one of the biggest concerns.
Yeah.
That was really, a concern because we wondered how could you take this incredibly challenging job and these people that have such serious needs, and we need to address these needs to protect the larger society. How could we do it if, we were down 20%, 30% staff? So, hats off to you guys for being able to recruit and retain people. When we take our next break and we come back, we'll look at further solutions and plans for the future at Hawaii State Hospital. Okay?
Sure.
I'm Josh Green with Healthcare in Hawaii. Our special program today on the Hawaii State Hospital, an update from Bill and Bill, Dr. Bill Sheehan and Bill May, the Hawaii State Hospital Administrator.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, Keith.
My name's Keith Bettinger.
I knew that.
And I'm the host of ThinkTech Asia.
I knew that too.
Here on ThinkTech.
Fabulous. You got a great show going, Keith.
Thank you very much. And for our viewers out there that are interested in ThinkTech Asia, it airs every Tuesday from 4 to 4:45, and it can be accessed online at thinktech.com.
Yeah, so what kind of guests you like?
Well, we have a number of guests from academia, from practitioners of international affairs. Sometimes we have military officials. Sometimes we have public officials on the show. And our goal, we try to talk about current issues in South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, and Central Asia, all throughout the Asian realm in more depth than you would find in traditional mainstream
That's the
media.
difference, isn't it?
Exactly.
That you're reaching out beyond what ordinary news media would do.
Right.
And that's why we like you so much.
We're trying to provide a thinking person's perspective, an intelligent perspective on what's going on, and we're both sides of the story, or even when there's more than 2 sides, we try to cover every angle. And I think that's one of the big benefits that we provide here at ThinkTech. Is it's a really innovative source of educational programming for the people of Hawaii.
You're great, Keith. You are a great host. You got a great show going on. I watch it every week.
Thanks very much.
Why don't
Jay.
you guys watch it every week too, okay?
4:45 to 4 to 4:45 every Tuesday.
Aloha, welcome back to Healthcare in Hawaii. I'm your host, Josh Green from the Big Island, Senator and ER Doc. Today I'm joined by Dr. Bill Sheehan, who works at the Hawaii State Hospital in full capacity as the Adult Mental Health Division, the medical director, has been the health division lead, been the AMHD chief, board certified in psychiatry, really our point person clinically at Hawaii State Hospital, and Bill May, who's our administrator there now for just about a year.
Just over a year.
Excellent. So we've had in our first 2 segments an opportunity to really talk about the scope of the hospital, how many patients you see, the complexity of the patients, some of the challenges and concerns. But I wanted to now speak in kind of broader, more philosophical tone about what you guys see as the challenges Hawaii has taking care of what mental illness looks like in the 21st century, what it looks like vis-a-vis the drug challenges that we have. Where do we need to go as we look 5, 10, 20 years out? So you're our experts. Why don't you start me off, Bill? You've now had a year to really take in the challenges in Hawaii. You've done an extraordinary job shrinking the staffing shortage, bringing down the incidents, the number of injuries at the hospital. You've worked in tandem with Dr. Sheehan to make people better. But we have big challenges out there. What do you see?
The biggest concern, like I said in the last segment, the 4 biggest concerns: sense of safety, staffing. Here, the number 1 going into the future is the physical plan. We have over a third of our patients at the hospital housed in a building that was built in the 1950s. Maybe in the 50s this was a good design. Personally, I don't think it was a good design back then. It is definitely not built for the kind of patients that we have now. 98% of them are forensic, like we said. Dr. Sheehan gave a very good description of some of the guys that we have.
Sure.
That building needs to be done away with. Even the newer buildings are not designed for the patients that we serve. We have a master plan. We have the process of building a new hospital is starting to move a little bit, but the official estimate, it's been reported on the news, 6 years. That's not accurate. It's 8 years. 8 years to build a building is just too long. You could build the Empire State Building in less time.
Yeah.
I've seen forensic hospitals in Jersey and in Colorado go up in a quarter of that time. This is not a hospital problem. This is not a Department of Health problem. This is a state of Hawaii problem.
Yes.
These are Hawaii citizens living there as patients, working there as staff. Hawaii has to do whatever it has to do to get the new, but this is the first building. There's 2 other buildings that are in line, but nothing can happen until this one is significantly completed. Just to say it's 8 years is unacceptable. This is a major, major concern. You've been vocal about that, and we appreciate it.
You're talking about building a new forensic facility.
A new forensic facility. It's actually based on the design of the hospital in Pueblo, Colorado that I just left.
Yes.
It's a good design. It's not perfect, but I know the imperfections because I ran the hospital for 2 years.
Yes.
So let's go. 8 years is not acceptable. The census is going to go up. We're looking at in the last several years, there's been a 47% increase in forensic referrals.
Wow.
Many of those wind up in the hospital. We have no reason to think that trend is going to change. It's a nationwide change. Colorado saw a 300% increase over the last 10 years.
Yes.
There's only so much room at the inn. And when I say that, we're currently using rooms that are not built as bedrooms. We're using offices, we're using therapy rooms, we're using examination rooms as bedrooms because we don't have a choice. They're approved, okay, but it's not ideal. And as the census goes up, so does the risk of something unfortunate happen.
You read my mind. I was
Yes.
going to ask, is it fair to say that as we kind of bulge at the seams there, with challenging patients, with people who continue to be sent by the courts for forensic evaluation, who have committed crimes, who have drug addiction, that sooner or later we're just going to have a moment where we catch a bad break, that one of those individuals snaps because we didn't have as optimized a setting for them to receive care? And I guess you answered my question.
Yeah, we don't have a choice. If a judge says a patient's coming, and he's coming within 2 or 3 days. In
Yes.
Colorado, it's 28 days, and we had an issue with that.
Yes.
Here, it's 2 or 3 days. We have no control over who comes, very little control over who leaves. Like I said, evaluators have to agree, and a judge has to agree before a patient can leave. It's difficult, but the longer we wait on the new building, that
Yeah.
can't take 8 years. I'm sorry, there's got to be a way. So whoever can do anything to shorten that, be it you and your colleagues in the ledge, the governor, our administration in the Department of Health, something has to be done. I just read where some building, a school, was built in 18 months.
Yeah.
Well, maybe double that to build a complex hospital. That's 3 years as opposed to 8.
I read, in fact, today that there is hope that there'll be a movement to design build, and that would be ideal. I think
would.
Senator John Oakland and myself have spoken about this, and we're hopeful that we can expedite this. I think that it will meet with kind of a positive, accepting ear. We spoke of 2 to 3 years, which is what I think makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
Let me ask you, Dr. Sheehan, so if we build a forensic facility in the short haul, the short term, what will you do with the other parts of the facility? Will we have I heard it was 144 beds planned for the new forensic facility.
For the first building.
For the first building. Will you keep the other buildings available for some of the services you're providing now?
The theme here would be clinical vision, right? So the clinical services. Bill's spoken to the administrative kind of things, which are really important. I think what we realize as clinicians at the state hospital is that the demand for our services is infinite. Our resources are finite.
Yes.
So the metaphor I sometimes use is trying to change a flat tire on your car while it's still moving.
Oh.
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to develop new programs and things while the volume is what it is. Bill's been very supportive. The division and the department have been very supportive. So I call it like almost any reasonable proposal will be accepted from our staff. If they want to try a program, like the SIMUA program.
Yes.
If our psychiatrists want to try something, we'll try to make that happen. We have limited resources, but if something they think might work, we're probably willing to try it.
Yeah.
I think we can get a little more efficiency out of programming, like for fitness restoration activities hospital-wide. We need to have it's not easy to do with people spread out and just trying to survive their daily work, but we can do that. We're going to do better with that. The substance abuse treatment's been very good. We're going to continue that. I think that the getting more efficient, we're talking about new ways to evaluate dangerousness and then mitigate that dangerousness. So I think the theme of a state hospital like us has got to be, we have two major jobs from a clinical standpoint. One, restoration of fitness, which involves medication, treatment, education, so forth. Two is then you have to mitigate dangerousness, because that's the biggest worry all of us have in the community has, don't release people who might be dangerous in the community.
Right.
That new building's going to help. If it decompresses some of the old buildings in the hospital, we might be able to keep the more acute or more serious folks in that building, people who are a little bit less, more ready for the door in the older buildings, and use them as sort of a step down within the hospital to move into the community.
Let me ask you kind of, just for my own edification, if you build 144 beds additional, and you right now currently have capacity under normal circumstances for the mid 170s, although you've taken care of 200, does that mean we will have the capacity potentially for over 300, 350 patients overall, although some would be, much less acute, but to begin to provide not just step-down services, but other programs altogether? This is a question that I've been asked before, because our state population is drifting up. It's not leaping upward, but it seems like the number of individuals with severe psychiatric challenges and drug addiction has leapt up. Would you expect to have then a campus that took care of over 300 people with bigger staff, or would
Yes.
it be the same?
No, the goal is to increase the capacities as well as, have more appropriately designed buildings, but also to increase the capacity. I don't like having 42 people on the other side of Oahu. They're, I would rather bring them back, but I can't right now.
Yeah.
So we need to build the phase one we talked about, followed by phase two, which is another 144 beds. Phase three is another 72 beds, I believe.
Okay.
So it's going to be a greater capacity on the grounds. And a key here is that it's all within the footprint of the current Hawaii State Hospital campus.
Yes.
We're not looking to move out. We're not looking to move into anyone's neighborhood. But we are looking to utilize as efficiently as possible the ground that has been dedicated for this purpose for the last 100 and some odd years.
Yeah.
Our population is likely to at least trend, if not outstrip, the growth in population of the state of Hawaii, and if so, over time, we're just going to need bigger and bigger spaces to accommodate even just the natural population growth that we'd expect. Some miracle happens and crystal methamphetamine is managed in our community, other sources of mental illness or criminogenic behavior go down, might be to the good, but right now it doesn't look like that's highly likely anyway.
Is it also fair to say that there is an abundance, though, of mental illness out there in society, maybe that hasn't been violent, but could take advantage of the good team that you have of these 14 psychiatrists and psychologists and care coordinators and social workers? I mean, in your perfect world, would we be taking care of more individuals like that?
It's not unreasonable to think there's somewhere, 1 to 2% of the population has a severe and persistent mental illness, and maybe even 10 to 20% has some kind of psychiatric trouble. Just doing the math, that's over 100,000, 200,000 people in Hawaii. And they're private sector getting services, they're all over the place getting services. But the state has always seemed to be there as the safety net to catch those folks who kind of fall out of that system. Right?
And that's what we are. We're a safety net.
Then before we wrap, and I told you that this program would go quickly, if you had one dream ask of the state of Hawaii, the people of Hawaii, to support, what would it be, Dr. Sheehan, for the hospital?
I think we're getting this. It's just understand that we're doing the best we can every day with what we got.
I appreciate that. And Bill, what would you ask for if you had a Christmas/Hanukkah wish for the Hawaii State Hospital?
That the staff of the hospital realize what a wonderful job they're doing in very difficult settings.
Okay, I really appreciate that. And if I had one ask, I think it would be a new hospital to reward the people that are doing this hard work, which is dangerous on some days, but very compelling and very necessary, and for patients that need us more than most. So we're going to wrap there.
Thanks.
It's been really a pleasure to be with you both.
Great, Senator. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thanks for having us.
This has been Josh Green, your host at Healthcare in Hawaii, talking about the Hawaii State Hospital, our psychiatric hospital that's meant to keep our people safe and healthy here in the state. Thanks for joining us.